going beyond the alien autopsy and the many ETs that are visiting our planet now. Welcome to Journey. Joining me this evening as my guest is Dr. Patrick Bailey, whom I met at a UFO conference and who is a UFO researcher in his own right. We're going to delve into the topic of the alien autopsy, Roswell, and what's going on now, what is unraveling with the government cover-up about UFOs, and what more do we know that we can share with you. So, Pat, I'm delighted to have a chance to have you on Journey.
I'm delighted to be here, Brenda.
And we have a studio audience this evening who's going to help ask some of the questions and maybe even come up with some of the answers we need.
Okay.
One of the things that I know that has come out this year, big time, is re-looking at Roswell and now looking at an alien autopsy. And both of them may not even be connected.
That's true. We had an international conference recently. Every year, at the end of November, there's an International UFO Congress, where the best researchers from all over the world come, and a lot from Europe. And this year, one of the major topics was this film, the Roswell Footage, which we have here, the videotape, and has been quite a big sales item for a lot of people through the mail this year. It's a quite pricey tape. And of course the question is this tape really true? Is it real, fake? Yes, right. And so this was discussed a lot at the conference. And I can tell you what the consensus of the conference attendees came up with. When I watch it, I cannot find anything in the tape that says to me that it's a fake. On the other hand, I still personally have a problem believing everything I hear, so I always reserve a small amount of doubt, and maybe everybody should. At the Congress, these following facts came out. This was kind of the agreement of the researchers that have looked at this privately and together. One, there is nothing on the tape that can show that the tape itself is a fake. The film was dated to be 1947 through Kodak. Film testing we don't know about yet. I'm not personally aware. And the other thing that came out is that this tape seems to be the second film footage taken of a second autopsy. So it's the film of a second autopsy performed not at Roswell, but at a crash that was different from Roswell on the other side of New Mexico, which is called the southwest of Socorro crash. And they showed pictures at the conference from the first autopsy film, which showed the same female kind of ET, 6 fingers, 6 toes, large eyes, with no damage to the left leg, and that was in a tent, taken in a tent. So evidently there's more footage, but I think the thing that has come out is that this film appears to be authentic. It's the second in a series, and it has nothing to do with Roswell. It's really a separate ET group and separate UFO crash.
What it's illuminating us, though, to the fact that ETs crashed, and regardless of it not being at Roswell, we're finally having to face that fact. We're having to really look and see, you know, that really happened. If it happened at Socorro, it happened, and there's an ET, and there's evidence of it. What is happening, though, in the UFO community that you're seeing? I'm seeing great dissension in the group over this whole issue.
That's one of the unfortunate things. This also happens in any other major field, even in nuclear physics. Someone will come up with a theory and somebody will say, no, that's not true. The sides will divide, and then there's this big debate about who's right and who's wrong, and all further research seems to stop. And we really can't afford that to happen in the UFO investigation and research field, and I'm really glad that the local MUFON group here in Seattle is doing such a wonderful job in supporting their research. People should get more involved with that group, by the way. Anyway, at the conference, there was heated debate on certain topics. One person from England was very confrontive to Michael Hesselman from Germany about certain facts on the video itself and what the photographer said in written reports. And they argued heatedly back and forth. And at the end of the argument, they shook hands and went and had a beer together, like a football contest, because they both want to get on with the action.
Yeah, let's get on with it.
Right.
In your opinion, what is getting on with it, except the fact ETs have been visiting here, and there's different groups, and here's at least one that we have a body of to examine. What does that mean?
To me, personally, it means, first of all, to have an open mind where you can allow the fact that, sure, why not? There could be other intelligent life forms from other places outside the Earth. Being on the Earth would be just like being on a small island of Tahiti. Think about that poor native that first saw that first three-masted schooner go by and went to tell his daddy, the chief. He was ridiculed, perhaps to death. So allow the fact that there's other intelligent life in the universe. Allow the fact to know that you're part of a great plan, that all the religions of the world could apply on a larger scale than just the Earth. And if these people beings are coming to Earth to help or study, include them in your life rather than trying to exclude them.
I want to move to our studio audience. First of all, I'd like to ask how many of you, when you did see the footage on Fox of the alien autopsy, believed it to be an ET? Can you just, by show of hands, let's get over to the studio audience and take it. It looks like, everybody here is sort of still divided too as to whether or not it was believable. I want to know.
Maybe you should ask the question rather. You asked the question, is it yes or no?
Yeah.
The question should be, could you allow it to be? That would be a better question.
What's the possibilities that this is real? And if so, is that just gonna, you're gonna have nightmares over it, or are you just gonna get on with life, accept it? I think the issue so much is our beliefs. It's shaking that a bit about where we are in the universe, who we are. That we're, the biggest kid on the block, maybe, and a lot of people just don't want to, don't want to relinquish that. Let me ask. Let me have a question from our studio audience to you, Pat, that deals with, if this is an ET, what would possibly happen that they ended up here in the first place? Any opinions? Explorers, got lost in space.
Yeah, I have a question. Well, I noticed that the being in the autopsy film has a lot of human characteristics, including fingernails and even nipples, and those are not like some of the other beings, like for instance the Greys. And the being in the film also has 6 fingers on each hand, and prior to that, I hadn't heard of any alien with 6 fingers. I'd heard of like 3 and 4 and 5 fingers. And it also doesn't look anything like the descriptions that were in the media and so forth of what the beings from the Roswell crash were like. So does this make sense that this would be something to capitalize on the publicity over Roswell? Someone cooked up this as a hoax. If that was the case, why would they have made the beings look so different? Do you have any insights on that?
Oh, myself? I think you brought up a very, very good point. It would be very easy to have one kind of ET, and if somebody was going to fake it, you always have the same kind. And you could have William Shatner dream up the ET of choice. And here we have a case where there's lots of characteristics. You mentioned that it was different from what we know now of the Roswell ETs. Perhaps we should explain that just a bit. When the movie Roswell was made, there was a small group of people, 2 or 3, that just made up what the ETs would look like and what their craft looked like. And then after the movie came out, evidently a number of people across the nation who had seen the movie got upset, said, no, I was there, that's not it.
Right.
And they came out, and through interviews they have put together what they call a forensic model of what the Roswell ETs looked like, which were 4 feet tall, pink-skinned, humanoid type, 4 fingers, 4 toes, round eyes, and I don't remember about the hair. And their craft was a bat-winged shaped thing, like out of a Batman, with 2 vertical stabilizers canted inward. whereas the South of Socorro crash with the autopsy film, we'll leave out the word Roswell, was supposedly a flying saucer upside down. So the fact that they're akin to human means that the DNA looks as similar. So that's like a plus. We're all related. You know, they're not aliens, it's family, you know, long lost brothers. And maybe they are caretakers of our DNA. Maybe they're here to study, to help us. And if we mess up our fish pond too much with pollution, maybe they'll help us get out of that too. But the more different kinds of ETs that we find, the more validity it gives me. And if I could point out that
yes, I want to
David,
show David's book. This young man that was just speaking is also a UFO researcher and a marvelous illustrator of many varieties of ETs after discussing with contactees what they've seen, who they've seen.
So he put this together based on their descriptions, not his own.
Right.
Yeah.
So thank you, David, for your contribution. I think what this says, Pat, is we may have cousins of all varieties out there, and we should be taking more notice of the fact that perhaps we could be having some form of communication with them, and maybe not having us study them in an autopsy table and them study us during the abduction scenarios, which is the typical instance that we hear about ET communication. But I'd like to ask out here if there's any that have had any other kind of contact at all in the group, or know or believe even that aside from experimentation or abductions, there is ET contact and communication going on and has been for some time. Kathy, how about you? I'm going to put you on the spot. As a MUFON member, you can speak up for the...
Well, I'm just an investigator. That's the thing. But I do have a question for Dr. Bailey. You talked about the crash in Socorro, and you talked about the crash in Roswell. So that's multiple crashes in 1947. What would contribute to multiple crashes in that year?
Okay, this is a subject that came up during the conference. Wendell Stevens is a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel, I believe, and has been investigating all these different reports of different crashes. It's great to have a military pension. You can have money to research with. And he has come up with the fact that there were a lot of crashes in Arizona, New Mexico, and southern Colorado, I believe, yes, Colorado, perhaps even Utah, in that 1946, 1948 time frame. And I had brought up to the MUFON group that Wendell Stevens had also said that was the same time frame that the radar installations at the major airports and Sandia Base near Albuquerque, White Sands down at the south part of New Mexico, southwest part, and airports in Tucson and Phoenix extended the range of their radar systems. They had stronger radar. And the theory is that perhaps when you were flying along in a UFO over the magnetic lines of the Earth, or however they float in the air, that perhaps being locked on by radar somehow jammed their instruments. And just caused them, like too much ice on your car, just caused them to skid off and crash.
So all of a sudden crashes, right.
Yeah. And he reported that I was trying to keep track as he was talking. I think there were over 20 crashes. So when we hear of the Roswell crash, most people think of all those crashes being lumped together. And that's really dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
Because as David pointed out in his book, there's perhaps over 57 different kinds of physical ET types. Just different types, looking different.
It's amazing to think of that, right.
And then if each type had a crash, then there would be, of course, lots of crashes.
Is there any way you think our government would be so capable of keeping all this from us? It is amazing that we, haven't had a lot more information over the almost 50 years now since that started, because we believe it's been ongoing too, at least visitations, flybys maybe not so many crashes. Maybe they got better at their...
When I was in the military, I had secret clearances and above. And I can tell you that when you have a secret clearance or a top secret clearance or even above in this area, and somebody else has the same in another area, you do not communicate. So it's completely compartmentalized. Big barrier. You just don't find out.
Yeah.
And you know, the Manhattan Project, the biggest secret project of the war, was 2 years before the Roswell crash and the other crashes happened. Also, in talking with the Roswell personnel in the books and the transcripts that they write, they say that not only were they threatened, but their family was threatened. If you talk, we're going to kill your children.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty heavy threat.
It is.
Being made by a force in the McCarthy era, where if you were called a communist, it ruined your life. So back then, they had ultimate authority. Now I think that there still is a lot of suppression. There's a thought that, how is business going to relate to this? You know, if all of a sudden you have flying saucers, what's going to happen to the Pacific Railway between here and New York?
Oh, gee, well, just think, we'll be trading with the Ferengis, watch out.
Right, well, maybe that's the purpose of allowing the things on TV to accommodate people to the fact that change is in the air.
Yeah.
And when people say, no, you can't do that because it'll disrupt society, what happened to the typewriter when Apple came out with a computer? It was a gradual change. People went to work for Apple, or for now Microsoft, I guess, on the larger scale. But the same thing will be happening. The only thing we know for certain is change will happen. So if there are advanced technologies, better ways of doing things, we should integrate them into our society carefully and not allow the politicians to get in the way. This country is based on integrity, free enterprise, and a belief in self-reliance. We should not rely on the government to do anything for us, and especially not speak for us about the things that we can find out on our own.
I think as a consciousness, as a people now, don't you believe that we're able to handle situations just like you said, integrate, look at new technology, embrace it, look at other races that don't look like us? It's unfortunate we aren't getting along on our planet as it is amongst ourselves, let alone getting along in a vast universe. Yeah. But don't you think we're capable?
I think so. I think that the atomic test in 1945 with the atomic bomb, and then later using the bomb against Japan, showed that the human race has taken its destiny into its own hand on this planet. To give us more power would just be allowing us to go forth in the direction we need to go. Now, there are some people that feel that they are in contact with higher UFO ETs, with higher technology, that say that mankind is not ready for higher technology, that we have to work on our social structure, our ability to live with one another, to really follow the laws laid down by Moses or Muhammad or Krishna in all the religions. And until we do that, we should not have powerful weapons. And we already do.
We already, yes.
So we're beyond the
that.
growing up stage. We're already there, and now it's, can we really do it? And it's a personal effort. Each of us individually has to take responsibility. And when we see something in the newspaper that's not true, get after the publisher. Get after the guy's wife, whatever it takes. Get the truth told and not the stuff that we generally read in the papers.
Do you see a lot of suppression? You and I both have gone to these congresses and had a chance to get to know some of the speakers. A lot of them are their phones are being tapped. They've had knocks on their door and people have said, hey, we don't want you going out and talking about this. Do you still see some threats out there?
Yeah, I do. And one of them, I can say, involved a SETI program out in California, that I was told by a person that left the program that he was told in a so-called classified briefing. I don't know how you can have classified briefing on a public program, but just like NASA is now classified, if you don't know, and probably also the Hubble Space Telescope. But they were told basically that if SETI picked up anything, it would not go out to the public because it'd be classified. So there are levels at the higher authority. And so I like to support Richard Hoagland, for example, in his research to see what he can uncover. Let's go ahead and confront some of these agencies and see what falls out.
Oh, we did some marvelous shows when The Observer was missing about the speculations about that. Boy, I want to go to the studio audience and see and give them quickly a chance to ask some questions about this topic. And the questions I'd like is, where can we take this information now? What is it telling you? Give me maybe an opinion, and then let's delve into a quick question or two. And pass the mic around.
Yes, I have a question, or maybe it's just a comment that I really hope that with the SETI program, which is supposed to be an open program, that they wouldn't be able to intercede there and stop that. That's a scary thought that someone might have that much reach to do that. But hopefully the people in the program would, if they found out about this, would take offense to it and would get the word out anyway.
Yes, there's a lot of traffic on the internet. I'm very good with computers, and I have an internet account for myself. And there are lists you can get on where anybody sends anything to the list, then who's ever on the list, they all get a copy sent back to them. And there's a lot of traffic stating that individuals at NASA have been and are still being employed to erase disks and objects that are on NASA photographs before they go to the public.
And NASA was supposed to be for the public originally.
So where is the outcry? Why aren't there congressmen pushing? Where is our coming together with the responsibility we want to face the truth? And it's time that we all did that.
We have asked on this show before for people to write the Congress. Robert Dean has been on the show petitioning for a congressional initiative. You know, like, let's have a hearing on CNN and let's talk about the whole situation about UFOs and what does it mean. But, you know, the tip of the iceberg is to realize they exist. It goes so much farther than that now.
Or perhaps we can get a copy of the NATO report that Robert Dean talks about, where in the 60s NATO did their own study and determined that there was at least 3 different kinds of ETs, and they were flying out over the Soviet Union, over Europe, out over France and into the Atlantic and disappearing. And that was what really caused the Cold War crisis in Kennedy's era, was that the Russians thought it was us, we thought it was them,
There
and it
we
was
go.
these UFOs.
Gee.
And since they don't exist, we almost had nuclear war. Yes.
What's your opinion, though, of why we aren't having, you know, landings now? There's so many groups. There's so many agendas. Some of them want to help us. Some of them just want to study us. Perhaps some of them, we were star-seeded at one point in time by either Pleiadians or Orions or Sirius. You know, we have so many stories. We ourselves individually are forced to really examine what that means. To who, you know, who am I? Who possibly am I? And where's my connection, you know, with the greater source?
I'm not sure why they are staying away. It may be that it has been determined the best thing to do is to work in secret, especially if they want to help America. We have a lot of indications in the past of not only American history, but world history, that when a person, an individual, a group wants to help everybody else, they gather a small amount of support and then they are suppressed or crucified.
Right.
And
exactly.
That might not be the best way to proceed. It may be much better to try to go behind the scenes, or like we're seeing in the movies now, you could take one generation, like our generation. When I was born, we didn't have TV. I don't think. And that black and white, now we have videos, and you can do anything with a computer now, and the craze, making graphics of things. You can't tell the difference anymore between what's real and not on TV, except we're real. And I think they're standing back because they want us to grow ourselves.
What about this maybe non-interference? You know, here we are, the generation of Star Trek and second generation, and there is that law we keep hearing about.
Non-interference.
Right.
Well, I look again at Robert Dean, for those that might not have heard his bottom line. Since I listened to his lectures about 5 or 6 times, I had to memorize it because I thought it was so important. But he has spent his whole Air Force, and since he saw that very, very top secret report in NATO and read it over and over, he has come to look at, it's not who are they, what are they doing, and why are they here. It's more, who are we, what are we doing, and why are we here?
Why are we here? Exactly.
If they're here to collect gene samples and to check out the cattle, unfortunately by killing them and whatever else, maybe they're trying to find out what we're doing to our atmosphere and our planet. If they're taking samples and even causing women to become pregnant and taking the unborn fetuses before they come to term, maybe it's to study how we're doing. So maybe instead of having them come take care of us, we should be ready to take care of ourselves first and then ask for assistance.
You don't give a good point to make. Exactly.
You don't give M16s to second graders in school at recess, you know. You have to have them be more responsible first. And I think there's a push now to get people to be more responsible and find out what the government is really doing. What executive orders is Clinton really signing? Why is it when somebody volunteers to defend the Constitution of the United States, they're court-martialed because they don't want to serve in the UN? All these little things are popping up now. Why don't we find out the truth about what's going on?
It's really time for a heightened awareness on all of our parts as responsible citizens, and maybe returning to that sense of sovereignty that our founding fathers really envisioned, I believe, for us as a country.
When this country was
in the very
founded.
beginning, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank you, Pat. This quick little journey has come to an end, unfortunately. But I'm going to let you know that we're going to talk with Pat some more on another segment of Journey about free energy.
Okay.
So, do enjoy your journey and open up to the possibilities of others that have been here for a long time. And enjoy your journey in the meantime.